Hi, my name's Shannon, and I started coming to fellowship about 2 years ago, and this is my story. I grew up in what you would call a Creaster family. We went to church on Christmas and Easter, but that was it. In high school, I then became involved with a Christian nonprofit through my neighbor's church and youth group. Initially, I was only volunteering because it sounded fun. But this was where I was first exposed to the idea of a relationship with God, and that religion didn't just equate to rules. I then went off to college and joined the on-campus ministry, became a student leader, went on an overseas mission trip, and started to work for the nonprofit that I had volunteered with in high school. On the outside, I was the textbook Christian, doing all the things that you were supposed to do. But then, everything was tested. After my freshman year of college, I went on medical leave and did not return the following fall. What was supposed to be a semester turned into 8 years. I was fighting to not only save my legs, but to regain a quality of life. Being back home, I was removed from the Christian support system that I had built at my school, and I was at the point where I couldn't physically go to church anymore. During this time, my faith subsided. It initially felt as if it was something I just forgot about or put on the back burner with everything else going on in life. The years went by, and things were not getting better with my legs. We had reached the end of the road medically, where I was essentially bedridden and looking at a life in pain management. I was angry this was happening to me. I was grieving the loss of everything I had planned for my life and the years that I had missed out on. I was questioning everything, such as if God exists and has this plan to prosper you and not to harm you, then why was this happening? How could he be real then? I was overall in a really dark place. One night when I was up in pain, I stumbled upon this tweet from a musician, despite not even having a Twitter account. Looking back, it was one of those God moments that I somehow came across it. The tweet was a quote from a pastor, and I liked it enough to look up who this pastor was. I found the church they had planted and prior messages that had been posted online. It was around 2015 at this time, and it was pretty rare then for a church to be streaming their services live and posting them online. But this church was doing just that. Another God moment. That night, I watched one of the previous services that had been posted. It was just the encouragement I needed to keep going for one more day. The next day was another struggle, so I watched another service. Again, it was just what I needed to hear. Slowly, I began to believe that even if medically I had no reason to have hope, that because of God, I still did. He had overcome death, and what is more hopeless and more impossible than that? Medically, I was now contemplating the idea of elective amputation. This meant making the permanent decision to cut off my feet in order to hopefully increase my quality of life. Prosthetic technology had come a considerable way at this time, but elective amputations were still a newer idea. A lot of doctors were still opposed and believed that any leg at all, no matter its functionality, was better than a prosthetic. After extensively researching amputation, speaking with numerous medical professionals and current amputees, and praying about it, I felt like this was where God was leading me. I went in for below-the-knee amputations in 2016 and 2017. I knew walking into these surgeries that it was a bit of an experiment if this level of amputation would work. But I was trusting that God would see me through and was walking with me. After having gone through rehab and learning how to walk again, we came to the conclusion that the amputations did not work. I was still in the same place that I was before, bedridden again, except now without feet. At this point, I could have gone back to the same dark place that I was in a few years prior, questioning everything again. But this time, it was different. I didn't lose my faith or distance from God. I relied on it and drew on His strength to get me through, trusting that He still had a plan, even if I did not understand it. I reminded myself that God never promised us that the seas of life would be smooth. What He did promise is that He would be in the boat with us and that the boat would not sink. I still believed that amputation was my answered prayer, my way back to a higher quality of life, and that this was where God had been leading me. However, moving up to the next level of amputation would mean losing both of my knees. Being a bilateral above-knee amputee is a world of difference from being a bilateral below-the-knee amputee. It is considered to be a class of its own in terms of functional capabilities, and only a small percentage of amputees at that level ever walk again. I had no idea if a surgeon would ever be on board with performing the surgery that would put me in this class of amputees, or if I'd be able to make it through the grueling rehab process. But I trusted that if this was truly where God was leading me, then He would open the doors. And slowly, they did open. In 2018, I became a bilateral above-knee amputee and started the rehab journey. I'm now one of the few full-time prosthetic users at this level of amputation. And the surgery did work this time, allowing me to drastically improve my quality of life and finally return to school to finish that degree I had previously started. By the end of high school, I would have said that I believed in God, but looking back, it wasn't a belief like it is today. Going through hardships not only tests your faith, but can really help to strengthen and develop it further. By no means is life a walk in the park now. It certainly has its challenges, as it does for everyone else. But I now know that there's always a reason to have hope, no matter how dire the circumstances might seem. I also know that God is who I rely on for my strength and resilience, and who I turn to first when challenges arise. I also now understand the importance of Christian community and fellowship, especially when going through trials. We are never made to go through this life alone. We are made for relationship.